Alright, so now that we'd gotten the door sealed and it was pretty good, it was time to start redoing the locks. As I said, the lock previously, the deadbolt had kind of worked, and then the insides of it got destroyed or mangled or something. But anyway, part of the problem is that this door is hollow. So this is a hollow door with two aluminum sides, and so what had happened is there's nothing in the middle to kind of take that lock and get it secured correctly. And so it would tweak the doors and it would just bend everything up. Also, it was too thick. This is much thicker than a standard door that you'd get in a house, and so they had used special hardware to extend it, but it wasn't enough, because the part that sort of turned and turns the lock and everything just barely hung on to the other piece, and so it was not a very ideal situation. So when we decided to put one in, we put in a quick set, and we decided, hey, let's try to use like one of these new fancy kind of automated door locks. So it turns out we just made more work for ourselves. Okay, so we'd taken this door off, and to our shock, the holes that were made where the household residential handle, it looked like someone had taken maybe less than a 1/2 inch drill bit and just drilled a bunch of nasty holes in it. It was terrible looking. Anyway, so we decided to patch that up, and then we decided to get one of these locks, another quick set lock, because we've read pretty much everywhere that almost everyone uses just a deadbolt lock to secure the door, because it's much more secure than the strike plates and all that other stuff. So we got another one, got this sort of electronic version which would allow us to use our cell phones as the key and stuff like that. The problem was the back side of this thing is huge. And another issue is, again, with the hollow door, it just wouldn't line up correctly. So what we ended up doing was taking a piece of 2x6 and cutting the correct holes in it and shoving it in there so that the plates would actually smash onto something physical and hold on there much better and much more securely. Of course, nothing about the door is square or straight or anything, so we had to shim it a little bit and finagle it a little bit to get it to operate just right, because these doors with the motor in them are extremely picky about how they go through their range of motion. So anyway, we shimmed it up, got everything lined up, made this wooden piece to secure it on there, and so that it would be nice and tight and it wouldn't just be pressing on the aluminum. So anyway, we got this door installed. The other issue then was, what do we do on the other side with the striker plate, because this side was also just destroyed. So we went in and took a bunch of this apart and used a vise and some pliers and everything to get everything at least flat and lined back up. After that, we were able to weld in a few supports and then use the striker plate then to sort of just make the hole in the exact right place so that it slides in nice and smoothly. Alright, so this actuator was soldered in, and screwed in, and then we installed bullet connectors here to go to a 12 volt source, and so that 12 volt source comes up through and then down in, and then in here we have a little fuse box that we've just put in temporarily. We'll mount this in a better location later, but this is hot. And then into our panel we've put in a little button that now actuates the door. So when I push this button, that little guy over there, I don't know if you can see that, but that little guy over there would then fire. So now we can push this button, and now we can use this thing to open and close the door again. So So that was one thing. So the next problem we had to solve was, how are we going to open it from the inside? So how are we going to be able to, if the door is closed and we're in here and we want to get outside, we don't want to push the button every time to go outside. So let's put a little handle inside. And if there's a fire or if there's some kind of emergency, we don't want to be relying on an electric solenoid as the only way to get the door open. So we wanted to come up with a mechanical, physical means of opening the door from the inside. Right. So on the inside, this is the handle that we had picked up. And so we'd picked up this chrome handle. I think it was just off of Peterbilt or something like that, but it's made to go sideways. So it opens up sideways, but the way our door handle is set up and the way that one is set up, it worked better if it goes straight up and down. So this is what we mocked up here. And so this piece of wood was just kind of a scrap piece of wood that we had, and we just said, let's make just kind of a mock panel and see if we can position this correctly and get it to work. And so this handle we pull up, and it seems like it wouldn't be that natural, but it is totally natural when you use it. You know, pull the handle up and the door pops open, you can push it open. So on the back, this handle came with a big long metal thing. It was probably that long, with a couple of cotter pins. This wire was too thick for the one that we have. So when we'd modified the door handle earlier, we had a piece of this left over, a piece of the original control wire for the handle and the C-clamp. And so we used that and we welded it. We just literally welded it to the other piece of handle here. And so this is all just kind of mocked up for now, but we thought, hey, if we can put it in there and we can get it to work, then when we build our real opener thing, and so the lock, here's where a cutout that we've roughed in a little bit for the lock. If we can get this on there and we can prove that this works, then we have a pretty good template for when we do the real thing. We won't be shooting blind. So we did. So we made this up, and we just attached it with some temporary metal screws. And so this goes down in through the door, and then there's a hole that it has to line up exactly with. So I'm not going to get it on the first try, but there's a hole down here that it has to go through.
Push it down. All right.
Alright, so this little piece goes in here, and then this just snaps over it to keep it secure. And so this lines up so we can see the cutout here, and then this lines up, and we have a few little screws that are just, these are temporary, just for now, so that it holds it in place. Alright, so after we get these secured in, so this has that rod that we showed that connects into here, and it just literally pulls up on that. So the cool thing is, if this is locked, this will both unlock it and it will open this side hinge both at the same time. So if we pull this up, again, even if it's locked, it'll unlock it and then go ahead and pop this open. So it's a purely physical, it doesn't rely on any electronics in case there's an emergency or fire or anything like that. It's just a physical way of opening the door. Alright, so another thing we realized when we mocked this up is, because our door is so thick and we had to inset the control piece for this is actually meant to stick out the back of a door when you install it in a residential setting. The whole unit sticks out the back. And so in order to change the battery, so it's powered by 4 AA batteries. And in order to change the batteries, you have to take off this entire case, and then there's a little cartridge in the back that pulls up, and the 4 AA batteries sit in that little cartridge, which is fine. The problem is, in our particular situation, we'd have to take this entire door apart, and then take this apart, and then actually pull the back side of the lock apart, because the way we've inset it, it's actually the door interferes with being able to pull that little battery cartridge out. So we're like, at first we were like, well, it's only once a year. Supposedly these batteries last for about a year. So if it's only once a year, maybe it's not so bad. But then we started thinking, well, then we're going to have to take apart our entire door. And although we're going to make it in such a way that it's, you know, that the panels are removable and that we can do that, it's probably not something we want to do even once a year if we can help it. So now we had to figure out, how can we power this, which runs off 4 AA's, off of maybe our 12-volt circuit. We're already running wires for this guy. So we already ran some wires that we needed to get the actuator to work. So what's another wire coming in here? If we can power this guy, then we won't have to worry about the batteries going dead or anything like that. So we did. So we got a converter. We measured the voltage on the 4 batteries, and they're all tied in series. So it's 6 volts. So we needed a 12 volt to 6 volt converter that would fit in here that could power this thing. So we went on Amazon again, found that, and then we'll show you how we wired that up. Okay, so now we've taken the panel back off, and we can see we have a lot more exposure to this, and we can see what I'm talking about right here, where the battery sits way in the back there. And so even when we pull this metal cover off, we've got to pull the entire back of the lock off to get to that. So what we did is we notched a little notch up there. You can barely see it, but we soldered some wires in to the little battery tray. And then we have the battery tray coming to this little tiny 18 watt, 12 volt to 6 volt buck converter. And so we wired in 12 volts to come into here, and it's in that fuse box. And then 6 volts comes and powers this guy, and so far it's worked perfect. So we'll have to see over time how this guy works out, but so far he's been powering this guy and everything seems to be working exactly the way it should. Alright, so the way this key stuff works, so this guy latches onto there as we've described before. And so the way the lock works is down here, when it's locked and you pull the handle, it actually disables the engagement of this guy. So if I unlock it, which is like that, then now you can see that it pulls on it. If I lock it, which is like this, you can see that you can pull the handle, but it doesn't do anything. Also, you can see that when this goes up, that's how it unlocks it, and then if it goes up further, it undoes the latch. So that's how this particular lock works. The quick set, so the lock we chose on this guy, so that's how the door closes. So now it's nice and firm. It doesn't shake or rattle or anything, which was another thing, is as we were going down the road with when the door, when we first got it, it would rattle all over the place. So, that's our neighbor. So, anyway, when we got this, now it's nice and secure because of, you know, that bolt. And so this is, when this is locked, there it's unlocked. And so if we lock it, which we now have a key, which is like that, now you can see the handle doesn't do anything. So with this one, all we have to do is we need to be in range with our smartphone, and then we just touch this guy, and there, now it's locked. So it's kind of neat. These, so the other cool thing is we can email people virtual keys, and so if we needed someone to get in, we could email a virtual key. And it also works with a lot of the smart home stuff. So there it's unlocked, so now it's unlocked itself. And so for this one, we could also, now that it's wired in, we could tie this in also to another home automation system where we could even unlock this one remotely. So that was kind of one of the motivations for this stuff, is to be able to have access kind of remotely and to see what was going on remotely. So that's the way the lock works. So the last piece of the puzzle was to insulate this part here. So this was tough because the door doesn't fit extremely well. So what we did was we got a piece of aluminum and we countersunk these screws into it, and then this this weather stripping was from Luke. So this is the original weather stripping, and up top it's nice and tight, so it works really well. Down below here, not so well, because the door kind of sticks out a little bit. So we did what we could with this, and then on this side, we've gone in and used more of that garage. It's like for the bottom of garage doors. And what this does is provide a nice little lip for the two to seal against each other. So now, even when it's partially closed, you can see that it makes a nice seal. So when we close it all the way, even though there's a pretty good gap here, it's all completely sealed. So it should be airtight. So the last, whoops, I accidentally touched the lock. So the last part is just getting around this little mechanism to seal. So we'll go ahead and reopen this. So the last thing we've got to do as far as sealing the door is just, we're going to come in here and we're going to, when the wall is up, we're going to secure this like this. And so it'll make a seal there. So that's the plan for that. So that's an overview of our crazy door. So the part that's left is actually insulating this door. So we're going to fill this probably with, we have rock sole insulation, which is what we've chosen, and maybe some EHP, which is this another product we're looking at for insulation that we've heard really good things about. We'll insulate this door and then cover it with something to make it attractive. So a piece of aluminum or a piece of diamond plate or something to make it look attractive. So the piece we had, the little piece of wood there, was kind of a template, and then just to verify that our door placement and mechanism and everything was going to work out, which it has. So that's worked out great. All right, so that's an overview of our door. This has been one of the most frustrating and one of the most time-consuming projects on the entire bus, just because it's taken so long to not only figure out how things work and how we should do things. We didn't even know what options were available. So we haven't done a lot of recording. We didn't do a lot of recording throughout the process, just because it's extremely frustrating, and when you're right in the middle of it, your first thought isn't like, oh, let's go get the camera and record all the frustration. So we've just kind of taken it as, little steps and finishing this and that and trying to figure it all out. And we think we're at a point now where most of it is figured out. What's left is making it pretty, getting some, aluminum panels or some panels and some insulation to, cut the noise and to insulate the door. But the only thing really left is mostly cosmetic. We think we've mostly sealed it up. So all the seals that we've done seem to be holding, and the difference while driving is night and day. So there's a huge difference in when you're in the bus and you're driving and this door isn't rattling around and there isn't a bunch of wind whistling around it. So that difference has been pretty significant. So insulation, as I said before, is the next step, and then making it pretty. And I think this one's real close to being done. So if you need any details on what we've done or how things work or how we did the actuator or anything like that, please don't hesitate to ask. Like I said, this is probably one of the projects we're going to remember most, because it's taken so long, and it's just been such highs and lows. When we found the door, we were like, hallelujah, everything's gonna be great. And then when it didn't fit, we're like, ah. It was, one of the couple times Michelle actually cried was when the door didn't fit. So anyway, this is our door. Like I said, if you need any other specific details, let us know and we'd be glad to help out. Oh, and we still have the Buffalo door. So if you know anybody who's got an old Buffalo and needs a door, we've got their door. There it is.